coming at you. Good Wednesday, everybody. Welcome once again to BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Matthew, how you doing on a Wednesday?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. A lot of stuff to talk about. I know numerous people out there very excited about our guest today. Jacob Wheeler going to be on the show here in about 15, 20 minutes. And it's been a while since we had him on.
Well, yeah, you have to find a day when he's not winning something or accepting a trophy to get him on the show. So, I mean, he was like 6 weeks out.
Do you remember the last time he was on the show, what he was doing? He was doing something not out of the ordinary, but just, I think it's the first time we've ever done a show where the guest was doing this. Do you remember?
Well, he wasn't raccoon hunting like David Dudley was that one time.
No.
He wasn't getting his tires rotated like Wesley Strader was.
Well, it was close. It was close.
What was he doing?
He was getting his car or truck worked on. You're close to that.
Okay.
All right, but it's been quite some time ago. Yeah. So looking forward to...
That's a world championship ago and a cup ago. And
yeah, I was sitting here trying to calculate his earnings, but I could not find... I looked everywhere. And maybe I'm just missing it. If somebody out there wants to throw out on the instant feedback where I can get not just his Bass and FLW earnings, but his MLF earnings, I haven't found where they publish that stuff
I don't
yet.
think they do. I don't think they've ever published a payback for any of the cups or the World Championship.
I think they say how much each is going to pay. I keep seeing the number, what is it, like 1.2 million. And then 700,000 shows up.
Well, you have to remember what he just won, the World Championship, and then the Cup before that was not a part of the BPT, though. That was part of MLF, which is totally different than the BPT.
Is that a bad question? Can I ask him, hey, man, how much did you win?
I mean, if I'm winning World Championships, I think that's a very fair question.
Because most of the time, they're going to throw out there how much he won. I couldn't find it anywhere, though. I'm sorry. Do you know, Matthew? Does anybody out there know?
I don't know what the payouts are.
All right, well, forget about his MLF earnings.
And we're not talking about the Bass Pro Tour or Redcrest. We're talking about the World Championship that just aired.
Yeah. Now, I know he won $193,000 on the BPT.
Right.
That's readily available. You can see there in the standings. Mm-hmm. They give the earnings. They do a great job at that. But I have no idea what his true Major League Fishing earnings would be with all the cup events, with all the select stuff that he was in at the beginning.
You know what? There's two people on earth that this really bothers. It's probably me and Ken Duke are the only two people who care.
Well, I just
this is why, and I'm going to go with with the organization. So Bass does, you pay your entry fee, but then everyone gets at least $2,500 back for each tournament.
Yeah.
Well, they count that towards your earnings.
You get that's a 1099 right there.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm talking about from a statistical look at, what their career earnings are. Well, now you could have a guy finish 75th in every single Elite Series event. He's still going to get $2,500 a tournament. So then you look at the end of the year and, a guy who finishes dead last is going to technically have more earnings with Bass than some guys who fish the Elite Series for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And then you throw into the mystery earnings of some of the Major League Fishing events, and now it becomes this messy, muddled mess.
Yeah.
I can look at Brian Thrift and say he's won X amount of dollars down to the dollar.
Yeah.
Now, just as far as the checks they give him, obviously take out entry fees and all that.
Well, you can look at it as, yes, they did earn it because they did qualify for the Elite Series, hence they're making that money because they performed.
In all reality, they're still paying their entry fees, and then they just give them half back 4 months later.
Yeah.
But at least we know what they're making there.
Well, based upon my estimates, I know for a fact, this is factual information, that Mr. Wheeler has surpassed at least the $2.2 million mark in earnings.
All
three combined.
Right now, Jacob Wheeler in fishing, and don't ask him this. This is a personal question, I'm sure. He might not.
He might answer it.
Do you think he's one of the top 5 earners in professional fishing right now between sponsorship and dollars earned over the past 2 years?
Yes.
You think he's in the top 3?
Real close to it. Real close to it, man.
Is Van Dam still number 1?
I would say yes. Even though the chrome on the bumper of the Toyota, it's not dull. It's still shiny, but I would think that over the next 2 years remaining in this 3-year thing, that the initials needs to bust out of his little funk that he's in.
Now, I don't have any proof of this, but just off the top of my head, the top 3 that came to mind obviously was Van Dam.
Yeah.
Scott Martin.
Yes.
I would think he would have to be rivaling Van Dam because he's winning money and, I mean, look at
everything he has going on.
I still think Skeet's up there. You still think Skeet's up there?
I agree.
And Jacob Wheeler.
Yes.
What about Edwin?
I would say Edwin's probably top 6.
Top 6, but those are kind of the 4.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what we're going to see is, we've said this how many years on this show? You're going to get paid based upon how you perform. Right. Bottom line. Agreed?
Right.
For the most part. I mean, granted, there are guys out there that are just unbelievable at selling product.
Well, I'm just saying, look at the guys I just named. They all have classics, cups, world championships, anglers of the year, regular season titles.
Hey, Mike in New York on the instant feedback says, what about Gerald Swindle? I don't think so. Now, if you throw his hunting stuff in there, maybe. But if you just single out just his fishing stuff,
I'm including.
What about Ike Canelli?
No,
You got to throw
including fishing earnings and sponsorships.
Okay,
like
you got to throw
in the
Ike
last
Canelli
2
in
calendar years.
You got to throw Ike Canelli in there.
Okay.
All right. Based upon his sponsorships. Okay. And I mean, he's done pretty.
Because I'm looking
well.
at guys who win chunks, $50, $60, $100, $300,000.
He won
in a tournament.
Ike has won chunks.
I know, he just won the Open. That was like $45,000. Plus then all the sponsorship dollars. A total package. I think Scott Martin might be rivaling Van Dam. I really do.
Based upon all the sponsorship and stuff.
Well, you also have to throw in, he's making tenths of a cent every view on YouTube, and he just hit 1 million followers.
Yeah.
So you got to throw in another, and I'm not talking about, as you like to say, the financial wizard that you are, that goes intos and that goes out. I'm just talking about what they're paying him. So I mean, he's making a check off. Yeah, YouTube.
Clinton, Arkansas said, "What about Jordan Lee? Back-to-back classic wins."
I don't think he cares enough about his. He doesn't. He's not a go. I don't feel like Jordan goes out and maximizes it. Now, he does good with the ones that he's got, but
he must have got a hell of a contract when he made the move to
pure
switch.
Fishing.
Yeah,
and he's got all of his own signature series baits.
I don't know. Once again, and I know I'm going to get hammered on this because I actually received a couple of emails, I don't know, 2-3 months ago about that discussion that I had about anonymously having these guys fill out forms and then compiling all the data and see if we can get I don't know if I'm going to ever be able to do that, but we'll see. But valid point, man. Valid point. But I think definitely he is surpassed the $2.2 million mark in earnings, and the dude's only 28.
That kind of went off the rails there as to what we're talking. I do have one more correction. I had a correction on the correction on what I thought. So, originally, I thought that Monday was the first day of practice for the Elite Series, right?
Uh-huh.
And then yesterday, I said, no, they started on Sunday. Well, then I find out they have an off day today. So I was half right. So the tournament didn't start today. It starts tomorrow. They just have an off day, which is weird because it's back-to-back weeks. So you think they would have started it on a Wednesday. But I'm sure you want that Waddington weekend crowd. You go to the restaurant there, get some fried perch, get a couple Yinglings in the system.
The crowds are always massive.
Head over to the Arts and Craft Fair, listen to the heavy metal cover music band, stroll over. Watch some of your favorite northern anglers weigh in 25 pounds.
Yeah.
Head back over to the heavy metal cover band and finish out the evening with some fireworks.
Why not? Why not? All right, we're going to get into a couple of things here before we get Jacob on. A new sponsor, a presenting sponsor of Redcrest, suddenly has appeared on the Major League Fishing website.
This is what I can find. Should I just read this?
Yeah, go ahead.
It just says that. This was 2 days ago. A Major League Fishing official on their Instagram said, at Skeet Reese Fishing may not be competing in the 2019 hashtag, all capital Redcrest, presented by Venmo, but wait, what? Presented by Venmo?
Venmo. Hopefully we're pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah, that's right. Because the only thing I know about it is people are like, okay, if you get on the big giant swim bait forums, this is how I know about it, or like the Wiggle Wart pages, they're like, Venmo me. PayPal or Venmo.
Yeah.
So it's some sort of online payment system.
Between two individuals. I don't think it's between customers. I don't think. I was actually doing a little research.
And I walked in and you actually I walked in and I was going to hit you with this news. Hey, we need to talk about this
I was
today.
researching.
And you had the Venmo website pulled up on one of your 9 screens here in the studio.
Yeah. Hey, what did we say at the beginning? They need to go out and they need to get outside the industry. Obviously, this is outside the industry. It might have some ties, I don't know, from an e-com standpoint.
Oh, here it is right here. It's a fun and easy way to send, pay, and receive money.
Yeah, from your friends.
Look at the colorful palette of their Instagram profile. It's all sorts of pastels and oranges.
Yeah.
Blues.
Yeah. The interesting statement that I found was under advertising and marketing. And here, I'm just going to read this off their website. It says, Venmo is not currently engaging in advertising or marketing with outside contractors. If you have a specific partnership idea in mind that you would like to explore, please email us. Obviously, they explored and it worked. And what did we say, Matthew, many, many months ago? If this thing's going to really, really strive and be successful, you got to get stuff from sponsors that are outside the fishing industry.
And the interesting thing is this thing starts in 7 days?
21st, I
21st.
believe.
So this is a deal that had to have gotten done very recently because it hasn't been on any of their posts leading up to it.
Yeah.
And it's just been Redcrest.
Yeah. Yeah.
A title sponsor that you can't eat out of a bag.
Yeah, but I guess you could pay for it that way if you're going to do that.
You don't need any of those fancy little toothpicks.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
What were those awards called?
Yeah, and I did get some feedback on that too, Matthew. All right, so congratulations to Major League Fishing. That is a big, big deal. Obviously, terms of the deal were not disclosed. Mm-hmm. But hey, they're doing what they got to do, man. They got to get outside the industry. They got to start bringing in sponsors and revenue. And Mr. Klatchko, I believe that's how you say his name.
Is that the NFL guy?
The NBC guy.
NBC guy.
Yeah.
Who's the NFL guy?
I have no idea.
I thought they brought in some NFL dude.
No, not that I'm aware of. No, that was the guy. You remember I gave the guy big props for making the move over, taking a risk, and obviously it looks like that's going to be the first deal that he has put together that is outside the industry. So, very, very cool stuff.
You think that's the first one?
Well, I'm talking about after he was hired.
Yeah, that's fair.
Makes sense. All right. The second thing I want to talk about is very intriguing, very interesting stuff that you brought in here this morning that you were showing me on Instagram there, my friend. And we got into a little discussion before the show. And why don't you set things up? Because I think you can explain it much better because you're very, very familiar with the procedure.
Are we talking about... We're talking about Chris Johnson?
Yes.
All right, dude. So, you don't even have to be a internet wizard. Like, if you mildly follow the sport, you know that Chris and Corey Johnson are probably the two runaway favorites on the St. Lawrence River. They have been, I don't want to say dominating, I want to say terrorizing their competition for like decades out there, right?
Yeah. So
then Chris, and I've been on my phone constantly this show, but I got to pull it up here because it gave me a chuckle. On his Instagram, the guy posted a largemouth yesterday, Then 11 hours ago said, that's a wrap on practice here at the St. Lawrence River. It's the toughest I have ever seen the river fish, but still a great fishery. Someone's going to catch them. And then on his story, posts a photo of a 3-pound largemouth and says, not good resorting to these on the river.
Come on, man.
Is this potentially the seeds being planted for the greatest sandbagging effort in Elite Series history? You think he's on them? And he went, now this is what went through my head.
Yeah.
He's on them so good. He's like, I got to get these people away from these 6-pound smallmouth.
Yeah.
Let's go up and flip us up a 3-pound largemouth and then talk about how we ain't catching them. Just try to pull,
It's just posturing.
Just try to pull some of those guys up there to the greenies.
Greenies. Good term there. Greenies. Mm-hmm. How many people are going to bite on that?
Well, Bill Lowen bites on it every year, goes to the bank with it. John Murray doesn't fish the Elite Series anymore, so
seriously.
He won't be up there.
Dude, seriously.
Ish isn't going to catch the shallow fish. I think you'll have I think you'll have 3 guys fishing largemouth.
Okay, let's go back.
That'll finish in the top 75.
Do you think that guys will actually... It's not clickbait, but you know what I'm saying?
Post largemouth and then go catch smallmouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one right there that I just talked about that did it.
Is there anything wrong with that?
Let's make a bet between...
Is it part of strategy?
Let's make a bet on out of the potentially 20 fish in Chris Johnson's bag. Let's just do a percent. Let's just do
20 of them are going to be smallmouth.
What are the odds that one of them is at least one of them is a largemouth when he weighs in out of potentially 20, minimum 10, maximum 20 fish?
How big would that largemouth have to be?
Based on the weights for it to make any difference at all, it would have to be over 4 pounds.
Yeah.
To have any
I'd say
part
zero
of his bag. You think
None
there's a
of them.
0% chance?
Yeah, 0% chance.
I give it like a 0% chance.
We agree. I like it. No, man, I think it's kind of cool in a way, actually, to do that. And obviously, he went largemouth fishing. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I think doing... I've said this before. I don't get the whole posting stuff before the tournament.
I do.
Now, let me back up a minute, all right? I understand the concept. But from a competitive standpoint, if you're not posturing and doing what some people do on that, why would you want to give up the juice?
He's not. If he gets 5 guys off of a
That's not what
10-mile
I'm
stretch
saying.
of river to go to the bank because of that largemouth pick, then mission accomplished.
That's not what I'm saying.
And maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe we're not giving him enough credit. Maybe his nickname on tour is Honest Abe. We don't know.
That's not what I'm saying. But why would you even go to viewing and taking into consideration that information?
Oh, if you're another angler?
Yeah. Go do what you do best, man. Put your game plan together, go out, execute.
But I think you're
and
targeting
get some cash.
the guys who are doing that. Like, I mean, just from my own personal experience, when I'm dialed in and catching them, I ain't looking at that stuff. When I've got shreds of doubt in my head, and I'm talking totally legally, it's the same thing as listening to hearing a guy talk behind you at the meeting at a BFL. When you're dialed in, you don't care if he's like, oh, they're on that bubble gum.
Yeah.
The bubble gum sticko. The bubblegum sluggo. You got to burn the bubble gum, and you're like, God, I need to get some bubblegum sluggos. And then you're like, I'm already screwed. The tournament hasn't even started yet. But when you're dialed, you don't care. So I mean that could do a little mind game with some guys who are not very comfortable with the strong current, the big drop shot weights, the deeper stuff, or they're not sure what's going on, and then they're like, ooh, Chris Johnson up there fishing largemouth?
Do you think that question has ever been asked to somebody that has won a tournament? Did you posture and place things on social media prior to your tournament to purposely throw some people off? Has that question ever been asked?
No, but I mean, we can get guys on and ask him that on situations where it looks like that might have happened.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to
He's
see
not
what they
doing
say.
anything wrong. We're not accusing anything of anybody doing it.
And you know what? It could, like I said,
It's
it could be
strategy.
totally normal. He could come in with 24 pounds of largemouth. I mean,
And make us look like idiots.
I mean, we'd be done. Like, it would be like, we'd be done, Mark.
We're just playing the odds here. We're playing the facts. We're playing the odds. We're playing the history. That's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I would be thoroughly amazed, and I think every single fan that follows this game would be thoroughly amazed.
I mean, you can
if he came in with 20 largemouth.
You can do 20 pounds of largemouth a day.
Yeah.
If the conditions go right.
Yeah.
I've been out there before. I've fished for it with numerous different guys. They're fun to catch.
You think Wheeler looks at social media before an event?
I have no idea what Wheeler does.
I don't think he does.
You don't think so?
No, I think he might post some stuff.
I think he has some people, his people. He's got people now.
Peeps?
He's got a guy who films for him and stuff. He's probably got a guy who does all that stuff for him.
Yeah. I don't know. It is a fascinating strategy that if that's the case, to purposely go out and do something and then document it. Not that it's fabricated, because it's not. You went out, you actually caught largemouth, and then strategically place that on social media to give people thinking. The thoughts that go through the brain, especially, and I think the key point that you said, if you're struggling. If you're dialed in, it doesn't mean anything.
You're not looking at it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of stuff, and I know this for a fact, a lot of stuff happens where, hey, you could take a picture of this fish on an offshore hump, or you could take it spun around where you could see the dock in the background. So people go, oh, he's fishing shallow. Now you caught it off the hump. Or, stuff like that.
Yeah. Clinton, Arkansas said it's the new dock talk is what it is.
100%.
Social media.
That's all it is.
Yeah. All right, cool stuff. All right, everybody. We are coming back with Mr. Jacob Wheeler. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Sleek new design with easy control file. The clearest images underwater with uncompromising range. Live mapping from the touchscreen. View notifications, video, even Google Maps on screen. And for the first time ever, real-time view of fish movements with live sight sonar. HDS Live. New from Lowrance.
I got my power pole down, stuck in the mud in the bottom of the lake, sitting so still in the wind and the waves, could even be a hurricane. I got my power pole down.
AFCO has a new foul weather rain suit called the Hydronaut. A lot of the features that I really like about it first is the speed vent hood. If it's raining out, how a person gets wet is when you run down the lake and the hood comes down. With the speed vent hood, it's going to stay up. It has a camera mount in the pocket on the chest. The Hydronaut has a 2-layer, 100% waterproof nylon shell. If you're interested in a rain suit that has a lot of cool features that's going to keep you dry, you need to check out the Hydronaut from AFCO. Aaron Martins here. I'm going to be telling you about a new product by Sunline. It's Siglon PE x8. I've been using it almost extensively all year for my frogging, flipping, drop shotting, shaky heading, worming, jerk baiting. It's by far my favorite Sunline braid. I honestly, I don't say this unless I think it's true, but honestly it's the best braid in the market of any of the braids. Definitely check it out. It's a price point line, $14.95 for 165 yards, and that could last you a whole year, just one spool with using leader material. It's Siglon PE x8. It's my favorite braid, and I think if you use it, it'll be your favorite braid too.
Blue Water by TH Marine, offering LED lighting solutions for your boat, trailer, truck, ATV, and so much more. Engineered and built to be rugged with waterproof and submersible options. Designed for easy installation, Blue Water is available in a variety of colors and styles. All backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Blue Water by TH Marine.
All right, we are closing out the week. Getting ready for a ton of stuff going on in the world of professional fishing. Are you finally making it to the lake maybe this weekend or next week?
No, I'm doing barrel horse racing stuff with the girl. We're going to be down in Texas and then up in Oklahoma City. So that starts. The lake stuff starts next week.
By the way, folks, I got an in-depth look and explanation on the wonderful world of barrel racing. Had no idea. So yesterday, Matt and I went to lunch, and he kind of filled me in on the whole thing. Dude, you're well educated in that game.
Half of the info was probably wrong. So now that you have a very small understanding of it, which one do you think is crazier? The people who...
That one's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Especially when, what are they called, where you just show up at 3 a.m.? What are those things called?
Oh, when they're in the slack.
Instead
of the perf.
Yeah.
The performance.
Yeah. Quite bizarre.
Like I said,
to me.
basically, if you've ever been, you go to a tournament, you leave at 3 a.m, and you're driving, you see a lot of horse trailers out there. They're not going somewhere for an early morning run. They're like leaving the rodeo at 3 a.m.
It's pretty interesting.
Anyway,
really,
I don't know.
interesting.
I literally don't know anything. I know how to get water. Brush the horse, and give it apple snacks.
I was quite intrigued. So we'll have to continue that conversation. All right, it is time to go to our special guest. And been a while since he's been on, but getting ready for the Redcrest, and we want to welcome Jacob Wheeler. Jacob, how you doing, man?
Absolutely great. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always great to see you guys in sports shows and obviously at ICAST. We don't get a chance to really chat that often, so it's good to get on.
Well, a busy time of the year. You're sitting there in your shop where everything goes down, and I see stuff all over the place, man.
It is. It's I'm getting ready to leave for Redcrest here actually tomorrow. So I got a lot to work to do today, and we've had weather record heats here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's been really hot, high 90s. So just sort of trying to get it all knocked out and try to get it ready and head up north to a little bit cooler weather and hopefully some fish biting.
All right, let's talk briefly about your season. Obviously, the first season of the BBT, over 190,000 in earnings, and that doesn't count what you won at the World Championship. And we'll get into that here in a minute. But you, as the guy that you are, and Matt and I got into the discussion about how you're definitely one of the top superstars in this game right now. How would you sum up your season?
I obviously it's been a really good season. Obviously, as far as fishing goes, I had a little bit of a stumble at Conroe, but the big thing is, adding a new addition to our family. My little girl Olivia, she's almost 7 months old, so that sort of no matter how my tournament season goes, it makes it easier to get up in the morning. You have that big smile. It's definitely a waking experience, a new experience, something that's really cool. And so, I mean, no matter what happened, the season's been awesome. But overall, the season, I'm really, really pleased with it. Edwin had a phenomenal season. So did, a lot of other guys. But, I fished the format for several years. It's completely different with practice. And that is something that I did have to adjust to, and that was something that was unique. With the Bass Pro Tour being a practice for a couple of days where the cups were always just go and run around and figure it out as you go. So but overall it's been awesome.
One of the questions that I've been wanting to ask you, and it didn't really dawn on me, I talked about it on the show a couple of weeks ago, was you go into the Bassmaster Classic earlier this year leading with a chance to win the Classic, and you can't tell anybody that a couple weeks before you had won the MLF World Championship and you already have a Forest Wood Cup under your belt. How hard was it not for you to be like, holy cow, I could win all three of these things, or at the Classic be like, that's okay, I just won the World Championship, I can handle a second place?
I mean, you never want to finish second. I mean, obviously you want to win, but it was nice to have that in the back burner. To have something that that was such a big deal to you at that point in time, and not everybody knows that. Obviously my close family, my wife knew, and a few people within Major League Fishing obviously knew, but it was sort of one of those deals you had to sort of wait. Put it in the garage or put the trophy in the closet and sort of wait until later on. But then obviously the Classic, going in the last day leading, that was a special moment because I felt like that was, you had an opportunity to win almost all the championships, which, that's a huge deal. Not very many people can say that they've done that. So, there was no doubt. I wasn't thinking necessarily about winning multiple championships at that point in time. I was worried more so about just doing everything I could to win that event. And that's what you have to do. You can't really get caught up with what happened before, what happened after, but it's, just focusing on that event and that given day.
All right. So you get the World Championship trophy, which is it looks like it's 5x3. It's cartoon big. And so they give it to you in February, and then they're like, dude, you got to keep this in your closet till June. That's how that worked? You literally had to hide the trophy for 6 months?
Literally, yeah. I mean, I had it in a closet, and it's sometimes I just have it there and I open up hey, that's, it's cool because it gives everybody a chance to see it happen. When we film these things, it's hard for those people to edit it, film it, and get it out there live, and really show what's going on CBS. So that gives us anglers a completely different opportunity to, and I obviously it is tough though, because you sort of have that sucker in the closet. You sit there, you're like, well, I won this year, so it's it makes it's nice, and it does make it toward the point where you're like, well, at least I did, if you get a second place. I actually had, at the Classic got second, then I went to North Carolina in Raleigh and got second, but to Peraza. Son of a gun! I'm sitting there. I had to open that closet door up every once in a while. And be like, oh yeah, I did win one, so it's okay. I can calm down. Just we can still win anyway.
All right, I want to go back to the Classic. Matt brought it up, and it was really cool that we were able to film the documentary that we worked on called 49th for the 20 Feet Deep series. But there was a piece, and there was a situation that there were only 3 people in the room besides yourself. And part of that actually was in the documentary. And the emotion that you showed when you were in that little squared room talking about, having the opportunity to win the Bassmaster Classic, it was something that I have never really seen from an angler before, because it was so quick after you had weighed in. It was so emotional. I just want to get kind of your thoughts on that whole deal, especially, Jacob, with everything else that was going on in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, that to me, I looked at that event as something really special. And the reason why it was so special to me was because a lot of, for the last 30 years of our sport, a lot of time, maybe even 10 years of the sport, the Classic was the pinnacle. And, and the reason it is what it was is because of the anglers that you're competing against. You're competing against the best anglers. And this year, in my mind, it was the last true Bassmasters Classic with all the best anglers, all the people I grew up watching, your Kevin Van Dams, your Ike and Ellies, the people that I grew up, Edwin Evers, the anglers that I idolized, and a lot of times when I was young, to all the up and comers and the anglers that have consistently caught them day in and day out, and it sort of was an emotional thing for me that it hit me like, this is the last opportunity to make it happen, in my mind, and that's sort of how I felt. I'm like, this is it. Like, it all comes down to one day, and the sports changed a lot this whole year, and that was something that like it really threw me for like, man. All that emotion came in at that point in time, and I'm like, man, it was a tough situation.
All right, we're gonna have Mr. Wheeler settle this for us because he's right in the middle of it. So in MLF, you can go vote for the MVP. It's like the top 12 guys. Edwin Evers is the. Look at Jeffrey's just sitting back and seeing how I'm gonna pose this one to you, Mr. Wheeler. All right, so Edwin won the Angler of the Year on Redcrest, but you can vote for the next like 40-something days for the MVP, and then the MVP gets a spot in next year's World Championship, which, I mean, are you already in that because you already won this year's World Championship? God, if it wasn't complicated to figure out who it is, wait till you see all the double qualifiers and then how it drops down. You had an 11-minute video about how it all works. It'll be like another 20-minute video on like the double qualifiers and how that works next year. Anyway, besides the point, I'm going to get to the question. So the question is, in your mind, what is an MVP? Because we had the discussion, Jeffries was saying an MVP is more of a team sport thing, and there's not any MVPs in individual sports, but they're calling it an MVP. So what is your opinion on what an MVP is on the Bass Pro Tour?
Yeah, I mean, it's what I feel like more so they call it MVP, but it's more in my mind it's a fan favorite. I think it's more or less who you truly feel like day in and day. Obviously, Edwin had an unbelievable year. He killed the game. I mean, the guy is like he caught him everywhere he went. And Edwin's one of the most versatile anglers out there, and he deserves winning Angler of the Year, which is, truly one of the biggest titles in our sport, if not the biggest. And especially against that group of guys, I feel like that group of guys is harder than heck to compete against. It's probably one of the toughest group of guys ever assembled in bass fishing, period. So in my mind, they called it MVP. I look at it as more of a fan favorite of who you think, day in and day out, maybe you thought did a great job all season long. And I think it was a combination of it all. I do agree with you. MVP is sort of a tough way to call it. I wouldn't personally call it that, but at the same point in time, they're trying to give opportunities to fans to vote for their favorite person or who they think truly deserves an award like that. Obviously Edwin came home with the AOI, and it is what it is. But I think they're just sort of MLF is trying to give the fans. Maybe they didn't name it the exact thing I would have, but that doesn't mean it's not the right name for what they need.
Yeah, Jeffries came up with an interesting name. If you have time, go back to the 13-minute mark of yesterday's show.
No, jeez.
I seen that.
Just go away from that, Matthew. Jeez. All right, I want to let everybody know we're going to get to your questions on the instant feedback here really quick, but I have a couple other things that I want to talk to you about, Jacob. One being the World Championship, and when I was watching it on CBS, I picked up on a couple of things. The first thing that I want to talk about is it was a 3 to 4 second audio video section of you saying, there's hydrilla. And you were looking at the graph, and it was only about 3 or 4 seconds. And when you said that, it was like you could see it, you could see your reaction just within that 4 second, that was an indicator of what that area was going to be like. Am I off base on that, or was that really how the whole thing went down?
Yeah, I knew at that point in time, I pretty much knew that was the winning place, like without making a cast. I felt like that was the winning place without making a cast. I ran around the lake, and I had 30-minute, we have a 30-minute ride around, and St. John's is probably, I think, maybe 9 miles long, somewhere in there. And there was 2 ends, and I ran in there, and I got to this creek, and there's mud pouring out of this creek, just straight chocolate milk, like this much of visibility. But on the Ranch Sea maps, it looked like there was maybe potentially a pond back in there. And so I got back up in this area, which it is, springtime, March. Fish should be pulling up to go spawn. Cypress trees, water was up. And I got back in this place, and the water went from chocolate milk to clean. And there's coots out in the middle of this little lake or pond. And when there's coots around, there's normally grass. I look down at my electronics. Sure enough, there's grass growing up. And I'm like, there's no way there's not a dang wad of them in here somewhere. And I felt like that point in time, I was like, this is the winning spot.
All right. The other thing is, and once again, I really want your honest opinion on this, is how pissed off were you that everybody else showed up?
I was disappointed, no doubt, in the way some people handled it. I tried to handle it as best I could, but it was sort of one of those deals. Definitely, I didn't expect it to be that way. I understand, and I sort of just tried to. The thing was I had enough of a lead at that point in time. I might have been really upset if it would have been differently. But at that point in time, when the other anglers started coming in, it was like, all right, it was just a little bit. I wouldn't have done it personally, and that's sort of how I feel about it.
It's that unwritten rule that we talked about it on the show a few shows ago. I mean, is that kind of is that the unwritten rule?
Yeah, I mean, it was very blatant with one individual angler. Aaron sort of kept his cool for the most part. He was in there and everything, but Talk definitely came in a little bit of. It was interesting the way he ran around and went in that area.
I mean, those cups are made for TV events, especially this past year of the cups. I remember when Major League Fishing first came around in 2011, 2012, there were extensive conversations as to how to handle on-the-water confrontation. There was one group that wanted to have a very wide berth of an angler with his trolling motor down to where you would get penalized within it. There was another camp that was, hey, we want them to mix it up. We want them to cast lines over each other. We want it to be mono-y-mono, rubbing rails for the entertainment factor for it. As it's kind of evolved over time, we're a decade into this thing now, what do they tell you in those cups? Because obviously it's still a made-for-TV event, massive entertainment factor. You're on a smaller body of water. How is that dealt with beforehand as to how you guys are supposed to work with or against or around with each other?
There's never a exact way to do it. You normally have it no matter if it's a cup or if it's an event. That a Bass Pro Tour event, I feel like majority of everybody is about the same way. We go. Only problem is in the Cup event or the World Championship, you have no practice, so you are continuing to search, look for something new, and so that makes it a little bit different than the Bass Pro Tour. And so in my mind, that is something that changes it up a little bit. But at the same point in time, everybody sort of gives everybody their room. And that's something that sort of that unwritten rule. On some of the lakes, I remember vividly when I was fishing against Van Dam in Vidalia the first time in a Cup event there, and I was in the championship round. He was destroying us. It was the point where he was catching them every cast. And I'm like, what the heck? And I look over there, and the lake's small. And I look over there, and I see Kevin, and I see him cranking the trees. And I'm like, and then I see a couple other anglers around doing the same thing, and they're getting up there. And I'm like, I'm not going to win doing that. If I replicate what he's doing, there's no way I'm going to win. So I got to go do something completely different. And so I started drafting around offshore looking for a group of them. Maybe if I found potentially an offshore place that I would win. And that's sort of how I do it. I've had tough, bad events. I've had good events. But when you're in that championship round, you're there to win. And, and some anglers are different in the way they act. But for me personally, that's how I try to, you have to find something different. You're not normally going to beat the guy who's in the lead trying to do the exact same thing he's doing.
All right. Not this year, but next year, obviously with Ott winning the Bassmaster Classic and being an MLF professional, but maybe in 2020, what are your thoughts about the possibility and would you like to see it where we have what we can determine as a unified champion. In other words, you take the champion from the Redcrest, you take the champion from the Classic, and you take the champion from the FLW Cup, and you do a made-for-TV or pay-per-view or however you want to do it. Do you think that that would be a good thing for the sport, and would it be something that the anglers, the fans, and the industry would support?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's something that's great. I mean, you look at what the Toyota Texas Bass Classic was for years, and that was one of the most fun events we had. You know, basically when it was Bass and FLW, a lot of the anglers, we all came together, competed. We don't compete against each other day in and day out and throughout the year, but that gave us an opportunity to do so, and it was a lot of fun. I think that potentially maybe making it to where it was like maybe top 3 in points or something from each tour would be awesome. You know, you make it a points thing, or maybe top 3 in points or top 2 in points plus champion of each. You know, each of their championships, would advance on. But yeah, that would be awesome to be able to compete against the people and friends of yours that fish other tours. And I mean, it would make it make me a lot of fun anyway.
All right. I want to know, with so much success that you've had in your career, and specifically, I want to go back this year. I'm always curious for guys that are really dialed in and had enormous amount of success. If you could go back and change one thing this year, what would that be?
Like a moment, or like
if it was something that from an execution standpoint, from a game plan standpoint, from a prior to the tournament standpoint, from after the tournament standpoint.
I'll tell you, there was one moment, or actually two. I mean, obviously Conroe was a hiccup that I had. Didn't make the adjustments that I needed to. I was sort of hard-headed. I left on a top water, and I'd had some big ones bite me. I buzzbait in practice, and I was getting maybe like 8 to 10 bites a day, but they were all like 3 to 7 pounders. They were really big ones, and the conditions necessarily didn't call for it, but it was something that I tried to force feed them, and then I ended up having a really tough event. Had the worst event of the season. So making an adjustment there, I didn't tend to do that the rest of the year, but I was a little hard-headed there. And then also there was a moment where I was leading in North Carolina, and we were at Sharon Harris. Frosnick and I were battling back and forth. I catch this 8.5 pounder at the end of the second period to go up by like 7 or 8 pounds or something crazy. And I was catching them on a frog. Water was 58 to 62 degrees. Fish were coming up to spawn. And it got to the point where there was 30 to 35 spectator boats on me at that point in time going into the third period. And so me trying to be, like a little bit safe, I got to the point where I did not move around a whole lot and worry that I would blow a lot of the stuff out that potentially would be the winning stuff. And now hindsight's always 20/20. It was something that I would have definitely moved around a lot more in that event. I ended up losing by like 3.5, 4 pounds. But I sort of just put my trolling motor down and went. And sometimes it's a good thing, but I felt like I was dialed in enough that it was like, it was a tough deal. It was a decision that I made to stay and put my trolling motor down and fish what was in front of me, when I feel like I could have done it all over the lake and caught them really good. So that was something that I definitely would go back and change.
All right.
Have you ever been in a slump?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I don't know about a slump. I feel like I've had a couple of tough tournaments where, you're just like, man, you're not making the right decisions. You look at things. Normally though, in the last 4 or 5 years, I'd say that happened a lot when I was younger. A little bit more like in my early 20s. Like I feel like that was something that definitely happened more. It ticks me off when I have a bad tournament. It makes me so mad. Normally when I have a tough one, I come back a lot harder because I work that much more. And sometimes you can't get out of the slumps. I see guys that they're best fishermen in the country, and they just have a couple bad events, and it just like starts to. It's a mental thing. A lot of times I think that's what it is. For me, when I have a bad event, I'm so pissed off. I'm like, this ain't gonna happen. I don't want to do that again.
So you've never had you say when I'm younger, you're like what, 28 right now?
28 right now.
Yeah, 28. Yeah. But have you ever looked at the results or gotten with a couple standings and been like, boy, top 5 is such a foreign concept to me. Like, I have no idea how they're catching them. And I ask that because it always seems like, you don't have strings of bad tournaments. It's unbelievable going all the way back to 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look at like my career, and I felt like I've gotten to the point where like right now I feel like I've had it takes a point. That's the thing. So it takes a little while for an angler to go, jump in this thing at a young age. You look at the Jordan Lees. I look at Polinick because I feel like Polinick and I were very similar in age, closer to age, and we both came out of at a young age, jumped out there and started fishing. And it takes, I think, the first 4 or 5 years, you're pretty inconsistent as an angler because you just don't have the knowledge. It takes a while to gather the knowledge of what fish set up on natural lakes and rivers down south and deltas and Tennessee River lakes and all of these things that there's little nuances that happen all over the country that it takes a while to make those adjustments where these veterans of the sport have known about it for years and they understand that. And so for me, like that was when the time, like when I was 21, my first year on tour with FLW to I would say 25, that was that really learning period of my career where I had really bad events. And when I would say really bad, like a 70th or 80th, because I didn't know how to make an adjustment. I didn't know what to do other than what I was doing to try to catch the fish. So like, I feel like now I'm comfortable where I'm at. I try to work on the things that I'm not good at. So that way, when the time comes, I can utilize that technique. And then I feel like, not saying I won't have a slump because I'm sure there's times that, but I feel like it's easier to dig your way out of it.
How much did building relationships early on in career, guys like Joe Thomas, guys like Scott Martin on the FLW tour, do you think that really kind of formed you, and instead of having a couple years of trial by fire, that kind of curved that a little bit faster, just kind of being able to lean on them a little?
I definitely think so. Joe was a huge, huge help on the business side of things, going into so many different things, early on. And then Scott, just understanding how he does stuff. He's one of the hardest workers I know. He's obviously constantly doing stuff on YouTube. I look up to him so much for a lot of different reasons, but he works his butt off. And he does a great job at that. He's a great fisherman as well. But that definitely helped me. Obviously, as well as Matt Airy, Brian Thrift, those guys have helped me along the way as well, in learning so many different things that like you just don't take for granted. Every time you go out with your buddies, like now MDJ, Mark Daniels, and Connell, you go out fishing with them, and I'll go down and fish with Connell on the Coosa, and I'm just like, I have no idea in certain situations below these dams and what to do, and that sucker's like, yeah, they're just set up right here, the reason why right here, and the current's there, and you learn so much from your friends, and that's something that it helps a lot to really expedite that learning curve a little bit more than if you did it by yourself.
I forgot to ask you, can you say how much you won for winning the World Championship? Is it a secret? Or I looked for it. I couldn't find it anywhere.
It's not. I don't know. I know how much we get, but I don't know if that's public information to say. I will tell you this. It is over $100,000. I'm not going to say what it is. I'm going to say it's over $100,000.
Is it? Can you answer this?
I'm not going to say.
All right. Can you answer this? Is it comparable to the other championships? Is there a comparison there? Maybe. Is it in the ballpark?
It's in between.
Okay, I got you. That's good enough for me.
I was thinking like 2.5 mil. I was way off on that.
I think his best friend might be his banker then. All right, let's do this. Let's go to the instant feedback. A ton of people on the instant feedback. I'm going to try and get to as many as I can. All right, you have a fan in Nebraska. Luke in Nebraska said he is a huge Jacob Wheeler fan. He wants to know, what is your end game in the sport? What is your ultimate goal in the sport of bass fishing?
That's a good one, man. Luke, I appreciate it. My dad was actually born in Nebraska, not Alaska. So that was sort of cool. And some really good deer hunting out there. But anyway, so end game. I'll tell you what, this is real talk. You as I mature and as I got married and have a little girl and your goals change. And I've been very fortunate to be fairly, pretty successful at a young age. And the more you win, the less, I'm not going to say the less it means. It's just, I enjoy being able to have an opportunity to talk with a lot of these young kids, high school, college, and being able to, share experiences end game for me is to continue to give back. I think that's sort of the stage I'm in my life, is looking for opportunities to do more for these kids, because I'm at the point now where I'm not going to say that, you know, I feel I'm comfortable, and you sort of like at that point, like I feel like I'm in a comfortable place. I have a lot of great companies that I work with. I have a great support system at home. And now at this point in time in my life, I'm sort of getting to the point where I'm like, what can I do to give back to my fans? What can I do to give back to the younger generation that is coming up and trying to compete and become a better fisherman? What can I do to do that? I mean, obviously the YouTube side of the things, it gives me an opportunity to communicate to more people day in and day out. And that's something that's big. But for me, I think it's sort of, I'm sort of getting out of one side of my life. Now, I'm not saying I'm not competing and not going to be competing as hard as I possibly can for the next 20 years, but I feel like maturity-wise, I've changed to not necessarily look at me, and look at more of like my family and others a little bit more is more important to me now.
All right. Jeff in Tennessee wants to know how much moving to Tennessee has helped your career.
A tremendous amount. Tennessee is a phenomenal state. There's so much. I live here in Chattanooga. I've lived here for the last 2 years. One of my best friends, Seth Davis, lives just 5 minutes away from me, and we just, you know, it's fun to be living here right on Chickamauga. But all at the same point in time, I don't live on Chickamauga. I live like real close to it, 5 minutes away from the boat ramp. You have so many great lakes right here around here. You can go to Cherokee, big smallmouth. You can go down to Gunnersville's only a couple hours away. Logan Martin and the Coosa River is just 3 hours away. You have Lanier a couple hours away. You have big spots. You have big largemouth. You have big smallmouth. You have highland reservoirs. It's truly just one of the best learning areas of the country, and centrally located. It gives you so many options. You have clear water, dirty water. You have it all, and that's sort of my biggest thing. I will say this: you can get caught up. I see this a lot. You can get caught up fishing the Tennessee River, always wanting to stare at your graph. So you got to be careful not to forget the shallow side of what you do day in and day out. And I've gotten that from growing up, and so like I can see where it can hurt you at times as well.
What's the weakest part of your game right now? What do you really need to work on?
I think the biggest thing, you know, as far as technique wise and just is fishing for fish. I can't graph. I hate like those are the hard fish to find. Like, and what I mean by that is like fish that are in between that 4 to 6 feet mark offshore, but you can't graph them, or grass fish. I think grass is something that I need to work on, and fishing for fish that are actually, you can't graph them. Those are the two things that I'm definitely on right now that I need to improve on.
Let me say that then. Over the course of this past year, what would you say percentage-wise, when you made a cast, you knew there was a bass within 10 feet of that cast where you made it?
See, we didn't fish a lot of offshore events this year, so that was tough. You know, Table Rock was really the biggest one that we had. I wouldn't say percentage-wise. I like to do that. I like to be able to constantly be able to. We probably only had 10%, 20%, maybe. You know, I didn't get a graph that much. Okay. This year was not a graph. You know, overall, maybe 20%. You know, I like to graph a lot. I think that there's so much benefit. Like for fun, I literally will go out on Chickamauga and just graph somewhere I've never graphed before. Just if I find a new stump that a crappie get on, or mess around in the fall, like it's just fun to me to constantly. I would rather go out and find a group of 3 fish that I can pull up and get a bite, largemouth, than go to a school of them. There's 100 of them there and catch them every cast. Just It's more fun to me finding new stuff. It's like a game. It's like it's constantly trying to outsmart them, figure out where they're going next, and try to get into the mind of what they do day in and day out. And that's a lot of fun.
Answer this honestly, Jacob. Who is better than you at graphing? If there was a graphing competition, who is better than you?
Thrift is a very, very, very good. Thrift is this is what's so crazy about Thrift. I just talked to Thrift yesterday. We were talking about, I seen the show yesterday too, and Thrift is so smart. Like, he plays this whole game of oh man, Bubba, I ain't got no bites, I ain't got enough bass and that. it's it's BS. The sucker's lying through his teeth, hands down, calling you out, you son of a gun. Thrift is so good with his graph, so good with his electronics. He understands them, he gets it. And what it is like, but he's also so good at the mental side of it. So like I was talking to him yesterday, and something that's just so interesting to me. He's like, man, I didn't make a cast to the bank all practice long. Now they had 4 days on Hamilton, so that is a lot of graphing. Don't get me wrong. So, and I said, well, he said I didn't make a cast one point in time on the bank, and he said during practice, he said, but because I knew it would get beat up, but the first thing in the morning, first day of the tournament, I went straight to the bank and caught 11 pounds on a buzzbait. And he said, then I never made. He said, but then after that, which you see Nick LeBrun, which I follow the Cup day in and day out. You see Nick LeBrun catch a big bag on a plopper. And he said, after that, I never made another cast on the bank. So it just, he said, I knew it was going to get burned up. So those mental things, that's not necessarily with graphing, but Thrift just understands it. He gets it. Connell's a great fisherman offshore. He's a very, very underrated angler. And even though he's a buddy of mine, I've seen him, he understands a lot.
But he's not better than you. Understand his graphs. It's okay to say you're really good at something.
I would say Connell's he hasn't had as much time traveling all over the country and seeing so many different things. So I would say no, he's not as experienced as I am. I wouldn't say he's not better. I'm just saying he's not experienced.
So Brian Thrift, then you.
No, I'm not saying that I Thrift is better. I don't know. I can only say it from the people that I know and I spend time around, you know, and you don't know. Like there's people that truly get it. Like and the thing is, you have to find sneaky stuff to win tournaments, especially in a 5-fish tournament to be able to save stuff. And even in this deal, like I had stuff that at Table Rock, I'm telling you right now, there was a place that I graphed in Table Rock that was dinged up, loaded, and I was shocked that they were there. I still am like, that was an interesting place for them to get at. I don't even know why I stopped there. It was just a Tennessee River like mentality, like, all right, there's a little current there. Maybe I can graph them, and there was 100 of them there.
Wow.
Crazy.
All right, back to the instant feedback. Brian from Lake Norman wants to know, did they treat the World Championship any different than a Cup event, knowing that it would air on CBS?
It was similar. Obviously, there was a lot more emotion. I feel like once you got down to the 12 guys, then you got lower and lower. You know, it's a little bit different format. You have 2 days to compete if you don't advance from day one. So it's a little bit different. But overall, I mean, I think that the anglers, the intensity level is a lot higher. Like, I think that's what it is. We're a Cup event. We're having a lot of fun. And we're not. I'm not saying you're not going to have fun at the World Championship, but it's a different kind of deal. It's a different kind of mentality.
All right, Maynard, longtime viewer and listener, he wants to know, and I don't know how to pronounce these names, but he wanted to know if you fished any of the lakes in northern Indiana. It looks like Wawasee or
Wawasee,
James.
The James, yeah. I fished quite a few of those lakes. Not a ton of time up there, so I spent a lot of my time right there around Indianapolis, and there was a lake right there in Indiana. People don't think of Indiana as a bass fishing mecca by any means, so it's sort of like I get it. Like it's not. There is some good fishing there though. You know, I actually did fished a Tuesday night in a tournament. I went back there and fished with my one of my buddies, and it's on Geist Reservoir. I think we had 16 pounds, and I think we got 3rd or 4th in a Tuesday night event. So they catch them pretty dang good there. There's a lot of great fisheries all over the state of Indiana, but that was by far one of my favorites.
All right, let's see here. Will wants to know, is the frog bite still going to be going on way up to Chattahoochee on Lanier?
It's so interesting because
you could ask that, Mark.
I just thought
I didn't catch on a frog up there, but I have not been to Lanier and fished that lake since the Cup, so that's been a while. You know, I'm sure the pressure is a little bit higher in those areas when you win at $500,000. It sort of tends to expose those places. So I bet you it's not as easy to get a bite up there as it used to be.
How's that chatterbait bite on the south end of Thunderbird?
Hey, man, I aim to please. I try to get to them all.
They still eating the pompadour on the east end of Arbuckle?
Don't make fun of the fans there, Matthew.
I'm not making fun.
Jeez, man, I'm trying to please here. That's all I'm trying to do. Let's see here. Mike in New York wants to know, any thoughts ever fishing any of the opens?
If I was going to fish a series, more than likely I would fish the Costas. I mean, I have a lot of friends that fish the Costas, thrifts out there running around fishing them, winning them son of a guns. The opens, I mean, truthfully, it's a very tough investment. I mean, if you look at it as a business standpoint, you go out there and you put $1,500 in a hat, and the money they pay out, it would be more for the fun side of it more than anything. It wouldn't be like a business investment side of it. So it's tough. Payouts are a little bit, they've gone down on both sides. So I would do it for more of a fun aspect of it. And I've talked to several of my buddies that fish opens and fish Costas, and I'm like, hey, I might, jump in a series next year and just fish them. But at the same point in time, it's tough because I got a little one at the house, and so I got to be careful about how much time I spend away from home. Plus, on top of all the Bass Pro Tour events and everything else.
Yeah, you had the World Championship, the Classic. Did you make all 4 cups or 3?
3.
You made 3 of the 4 cups, so then throw another 3 in that. Then you've got Redcrest at the end of that. Who knows what else he's filming? He's got to do stuff for his YouTube channel that he films on his off days, a lot of trips. So, I mean, you're 15 weeks in just on tournaments, not counting the travel, the pre-fishing, and then you've got all the sponsor obligations. So I would imagine you just don't have free weekends.
I don't have a whole lot, trust me. Between that and my family, it's a little bit trying to juggle it all. It's not the easiest thing, but I'm not, and by no means am I complaining. It's just something you have to learn to be able to juggle. It's taken a little bit more time with as many weeks as I've been gone, no doubt.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Redcrest. We haven't really talked about that. You're getting ready for it. What are your thoughts going into it?
Redcrest, it's gonna be a really cool event. I mean, I've obviously paid attention to water levels in the river. The water's dropped, I think, 4 feet in the last couple weeks or so, somewhere in there. So things are constantly changing on the river. That's what's going to be really cool about that event, is the fact that you have all this high water all year long. A lot of the fish were in completely different places all year. The river's going to completely change. Sandbars are going to be different. Places are going to be silted in that were not. It's going to almost take some time to relearn. And with a day and a half of practice, or day and 3/4 now, it's really, there's so much strategy that goes into this event. And I'm sitting here and I've been contemplating. I've been looking at Google Earth and I've been researching and thinking, how do I want to go about this? How do I want to prep your? Do you go and you spend 2 days of full practice on pool 8? Do you go and go to pool 8 and spend 1 day of practice and give yourself a leg up if you make the top 10 on pool 7 and spend your last day of practice on pool 7? There's so much strategy that goes into it all, and so that's what I'm more excited for that and trying to figure that out than anything.
All right. I'm curious, recently you launched your own rod line with Ducket Fishing. And from the business side of this game, it seems like everything you do is dialed in. Is that something that you are very, very involved with? I mean, from the ground level all the way till the ink is dry on the contract. Do you enjoy that? And how cool was it to be able to design your own rod line?
Yeah, I mean, when Boyd had come to me several years ago talking about potentially doing something, I absolutely, he was like, man, let's do this thing. And people don't realize how much time and effort it goes into designing a full set of rods that you're going to use day in and day out, and to my specification, which was so much fun. But I'll tell you right now, several of those rods I went through, in prototype stage, I went through 3 or 4 or 5 different sets, sending them back to the factory. Hey, I want this rod length. I want the butt a little shorter. I want a little bit more tip. I want it to be a little bit more parabolic. And so you're always constantly adjusting. I'm very, very, very picky on actions. Like, I cannot just pick up a rod. Don't get me wrong, I could pick up any rod and make you cast out there and catch a fish on a lot of stuff, but I'm very picky for what my rods and what I do day in and day out and what works for me. And so that's what I wanted to be able to give the opportunity to my fans, to people that are out there trying to get an edge on what I personally like, and maybe it works well for them as well. So that was something that was so much fun to me, to be able to go in and design a set of rods. It was my lifelong dream of like, hey, look, it's sort of like that feeling you actually you made it. Like, you have a set of rods with your name on it in Academy, and that was something that was so cool. But it was also a rewarding thing once you got it accomplished and you get that rod and it's the perfect action exactly how you want it, and it pulls the fish out of the cover the exact way you want it, loads right. That's something that's really cool.
Matthew, anything else? I have one more selfish question, but if you have anything else.
Do you have a Venmo account?
I do.
Nice.
Venmo. You got a Venmo's a good. I heard you guys in the beginning of the show on that whole deal like that. That is cool. I seen that because we actually got a email for our cup jerseys. Which we don't wear our regular jerseys in the cups. And they were like, hey, there was Venmo right there. I'm like, okay. And then I seen that the Redcrest was presented by Venmo. So that's it's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah. Do you agree with the statement that there has to be more companies outside of the industry to get involved with Major League Fishing in order for this thing to grow?
Oh, absolutely. I think that you have – I think this is the thing. This is how it works. You have to control, or you have to do a good job for the companies inside the industry first, but to make sure – because that's your bread and butter. That is, the Rapalas, the BMCs, the Ducket Fishings, the Academies. Those are the companies that are, endemics, that no matter what happens, they're going to be pouring money into, with the economy, they're going to be pouring money into bass fishing. And those are the people that keep what we do a reality. But then the non-endemic side of it is where it truly will grow the sport out of this world if we have enough support from enough non-endemics, and that's like Venmo and everything else. So like I do think that for everything to grow, you look at 10, 15 years ago when Chevy got into and Walmart got into the FLW tour and what that did for the payouts and what that did for everything there. So I do think that, if that goes around again to where you have so many non-endemics jumping on as far as, as partners to Major League Fishing, I feel like you're going to see that come around and potentially even be that much better.
All right, one more from the instant feedback, and then I have one more question. Mike in New York wants to know, what rod are you using for the DT4s and DT6s? So
I'm super big on a graphite composite. That is something that anglers use graphite for cranking. For me, on my series, I have a 7.2 medium heavy action cranking rod. And that rod, in my mind, a graphite composite, the way it loads, you cannot do it with graphite. You just can't make it work. Glass or just graphite composite is truly the best of the best. And so I made a rod because what you're doing is, I feel like always when I hook one on just straight graphite, the fish has control of me. And then the rod doesn't load the right way. No matter what you do to the rod, it's like, okay. But when you have a graphite composite rod, it just loads up perfectly in the right action. It can't just be just a graphite composite rod. It has to be the right exact action. And when that fish gets it, they really actually get the bait. The hooks penetrate very easily, and you have control over the fish. That's the biggest thing, my biggest pet peeve when I'm cranking is that I don't have control over the fish and what they're doing. Like when you have a real whippy rod, graphite rod, it's like they got you and you're sort of at their disposal a lot of times, especially if you got a 4 or 5 pounder on. Where I feel like with that, my rod in that Ducket series, it's you hook them and you just have them for the most part. You got to make sure that they're hooked good, but that's a huge pet peeve of mine. Graphite composite all the way.
All right, man. Last question, then we'll let you go. I'm really curious. Have you talked to Paul George since the trade?
I have. That's my boy. Yeah. I mean, I knew. I talked to Paul several years back and about coming to OKC. I think he's just looking. That's where I knew down deep. That's where he probably wanted to be. It's LA. just because that's where he grew up. Palmdale. I go out there and normally fish his celebrity fast fishing tournament every year. And that's something that, Paul's such a good dude, good fisherman, but, great basketball player. But you could just tell, like, he never told me, like, hey, dude, like, I would, but I feel like that was where his heart's at. It'd be like, I could see that, whether it was going to be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, he wanted to have that opportunity to play right there in his home state and right there close.
Did he go to Fresno State? Is that right?
He did.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
It's just because there's bigger bass in California. That's the only reason he wanted to be back there. He's closer to.
No.
He's closer to everything.
He's got what? Stanley Draper and Thunderbird?
Here in Oklahoma City. Those are two duck ponds, basically. Not very good. A lot of recreation around here.
The one thing that I will tell you is how much he praised the Oklahoma City, the fans, the organization, how much they supported him day in and day out. Every time I would talk to him, we would talk about how things are going. I talked to him about my life. I talked to him about what's going on in his career, and he just constantly would be like, "Man, the people there are awesome. You couldn't ask for any better fans. The organization and everybody that works for Oklahoma City Thunder, how awesome and how supportive they are." So that was something that I know he was very adamant about, and he's always praised them for that.
Hey, real quick, just so the fans know, the reason you became friends with Paul George is you were out fishing on a lake where he had a lake house, right? And he just kind of came out and started talking to you.
Yeah, so the way it happened was I was out there with a good buddy of mine, Brian Johnson, in Indiana on Geist Reservoir. We were fishing out there. His dad is actually fishing on the lake with this big, giant, like, ocean rod, like a 12-foot ocean rod. And I'm like, what the heck? Look at this. I my buddy BJ. I'm like, BJ, look at this Jimmy. I was like, what the heck? All the houses out there, $1 million something, million something,
yeah.
$2 million, $5 million, $8 million houses on this lake in Indiana. And his dad, if you ever met his dad or seen the pictures of his dad, Paul George or George Hill was playing on the Pacers as well. And he resembled a little bit more of George Hill. And my buddy BJ's like, hey, you George Hill's dad? And he goes, no. He goes, I'm Paul George's dad. And so he came down the dock, and we had a mess of crappie. And this is like right when he was playing. They were in the playoffs with the Miami Heat, or like right before that series, 2013ish, maybe 14ish, somewhere in there. And so he's like, man, my son Paul loves to fish. I love to fish. You guys, I said, well, yeah, here's my card, whatever. Have him call me sometimes, whatever. So he had a game that night or the next day, and I get a text from like some random number, and it was like from a California number, and I'm like, what the heck? He goes, hey, man, it's Paul George. Man, what you got going on tomorrow? I'd love to get out and go fishing.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. So I thought it was a little bit of a joke, and I called him up. He's like, hey, man, yeah. I said, well, heck, I'll pick you up at the dock. We'll go fishing. And so we've just sort of been friends ever since that and gone fishing. Like whenever I was home in Indiana, I would just go over to his house. We'd go bowling together, and he'd whoop me up in bowling. I'd whoop him bowling. Like I never tried to play him in horse or pig or anything. I tried to stay away from that side of it all.
I'm just impressed you had a business card on a fun fishing trip just on demand.
Hey, man,
just whip out the business card.
That's part of it. All right.
Exactly.
Man, that's awesome. That's a great story. All right, dude. Greatly appreciate you taking time out. I know your life is very, very busy, and wish you nothing but the best at the Redcrest next week.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm going to get back to organizing some of this tackle so I can be prepared.
Yeah, we'll have you on a lot sooner than we did last time, man.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I enjoy you guys' show. You guys are doing an awesome job. Really appreciate you guys having me on, and we'll check back in. Hopefully, if I win Redcrest, we'll jump back on. We'll talk soon.
All right, man. Sounds good. All right, take care, Jacob.
He's probably laughing at us because he probably won the first two cups that were filled in the dark, and we're asking about the World Championship. Just wait till those start airing, then you'll really think it's funny.
Yeah. What, 3 for 4? I never did go through and break down who was 4 for 4.
We know Michael Neal was.
Yeah.
He likes to point
was
that
Edwin?
out. Edwin had to be.
Maybe 5 or 6 of them.
No, there were 4.
There were 4 of them?
Yeah, 4 guys.
Who were the other 2?
I don't know. They had to be in the top of the
Sprague?
standings.
Sprague one of them?
Maybe.
Huh.
He had to be.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Cool stuff there, folks. Hope everybody liked some insight that Jacob gave us. And that's just kind of interesting that they don't want the dollar amount public. I don't know. I'm sure there's a really good reason for it. All right, man. This week, I want to remind everybody, next week we are going to have the Sunline Hotline show. I don't know which day we're going to do that, but we're going to get back on there. A lot of stuff going on next week. Redcrest, back-to-back events on the Elite Series. They will be at Cayuga next week. And fun time of the year, man.
Absolutely.
All right. What do you got going on? I know you got the rodeo this weekend, but you are working toward, what's your next event? The Federation event or Nation event?
I got a Bass Nation event on a Sunday, and then practice starts for the Coast on Grand on Monday, but that's over a month away, dude. You know, there's still an Open on Grand, a bunch of stuff on Grand first. So that's the end of September. So pretty much I'll be here through then, and then you're flying solo for all of October. No, I'm serious.
Well, me and Brad. Brad's going to come in.
Brad's fishing them, too. He's fishing quite a few of those Costas, too.
He'll come in.
He's fishing the Costa Championship. He's fishing the Coast on Grand.
I may have to get Kenyon in here.
Kenyon's fishing the Bass Nation.
Is he?
Yeah.
That's right. You told me that.
Yeah. You might have to get Drew in here. You might have to get Drew. Fifth level down to Drew. Go back 2015.
The truth.
He's been catching him at the Wednesday Nighters. He's been making an appearance at the Wednesday Nighters. At least the two that I went to.
You actually went to a couple of those?
Yeah.
How'd you do?
Had a limit.
Yeah.
I mean, you're actually catching a limit out there.
It's 3 fish, right?
Yeah. Anytime you get a limit on Thunderbird, you did something.
Yeah.
Then you just hope for the best. Did not cash a check, though.
Yeah.
That's a long night when you come into the studio. You know, I live in Broken Arrow. Come into the studio, do BTL, then work, then go to the lake at 4.
That is a long night.
Fish until 9, get out of there at 9:30, and then drive 2 hours back to Broken Arrow. You really got to want to fish the Wednesday nighter to do that.
Yeah. A lot of people on the instant feedback saying 100 pounds. We're going to see it. Hope so.
Oh, at La Crosse?
Huh?
At La Crosse?
At the SLR.
Oh, St. Lawrence River.
Yeah. 100 pounds.
Really?
We'll see. I mean, we talked about it the
like
last
I said,
few shows.
I think someone will have a chance to do it with an epic day on the final day.
Yeah. All right, a couple of things. Next week, we've got an announcement that we're going to talk about on Monday, kind of a tease there. And then I also want to mention, we will discuss this more on Monday and Tuesday of next week. Our next one-on-one live is going to take place in September prior to the Elite Series event that takes place on Fort Gibson right here in Oklahoma.
Elite Series guys?
It's going to be 2 Elite Series guys. It's going to be Hank Cherry versus Matt Herron.
Oh, my. Could you have picked 2 grumpier individuals? This is going to be the scowl fest.
No.
Both great guys, but I mean...
We're going to put them on a body of water where there should be some flipping.
You got to do something that agitates them right before it starts.
No.
Just to get... They are, but I mean...
No. No fabrication there. I just want them...
Do they not have a tendency to get grumpy?
Well, yes, but everybody does. I get grumpy.
I never see Jacob Wheeler get grumpy.
In a different way.
You ever see Brian Thrift?
He was a little grumpy when Talk came in on it.
Nah, he was passive aggressive. Big difference there. There's a big difference between grumpy and passive aggressive behavior.
Yeah.
It's okay. It doesn't bother me. But I mean, can you believe he did that? But I'm cool with it. But seriously, he's right there. But it's all good.
No, you're right. All right, so that's going to be our next one-on-one live. We have 2 remaining this year. We have that one, and then we're going to have what I am billing, and I'm not going to say who's involved with it, as the super match once the season.
The battle of the century.
Yeah, that is going to take place either in October or November.
What part of the country?
Mid-South.
Mid-South, October, November.
Yeah.
What
weather should be good.
What leagues? Is that giving it away?
No. It's 2 Major League Fishing guys.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all I'm going to say about the super match. We'll be building that one up. But next one up in September, here in Oklahoma, Matt Herron versus Hank Cherry. Elite Series, two of the superstars.
We've been kind of racking our brains over where we're going to put these guys.
And we think we might have the body of water.
The body of water, if it works out with cell service, you'll be able to see these guys both fish their strengths.
Yeah, agree 100%. And we're going to check that out next week.
And it could be really good.
It could be really, really good. All right, anything else, Matthew?
Absolutely not. We had a packed show today. Jacob was actually on for almost an hour.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, he's so busy, it's hard to get him on. And really, really good interview. And, man, not too many people have the stats that he does, and he's only 28.
I wonder what his stats compare to Kevin's stats at the exact same point of their career.
Somebody did that for me, and I actually have that. And Wheeler actually blew his stats away.
That's what I was saying. Remember, I know we had done it with Christie and Van Dam, but I think Wheeler has kind of taken over that potential.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Thrift has to be above both of them.
Probably.
He has to be. With his top 10 performances,
there's your homework.
With his Anglers of the Year at 12 years into his career, with his earnings 12 years into his career.
There's your homework
because
right
Van Dam's been doing it for twice as long,
Dude,
and Thrift has 300.
You're the stat guy. There's your homework. See what you can figure out. All right, back on Monday, same time, 8:30 a.m. Central Time. Make sure you rate us and do a review for us on iTunes. That helps us out tremendously. Great week. Want to thank everybody. Folks, we are out of here.